Thank you, President Gibson. We at Farm Bureau are proud to put this grazing conference on in conjunction with the Governor's Public Land Policy Coordinating Office. I've worked with Kathleen Clark for many years and have a tremendous amount of respect for her and her capabilities and understanding of public lands issues. Some have asked me if bringing this conference together over the last little while that it's been in public attention, if this is something related to what's going on the landscape with some of the confrontations, and I said absolutely not. This goes back a number of years with some concerns that I've had and the Farm Bureau's had over a number of issues that have escalated in recent years. This is about some research that's been done through our office and some things that we've wanted to put out on the table and have this discussion. The centerpiece of why we're here today is we recognize the importance of livestock ranching to the history, culture, and the economy of the state of Utah. I'm going to go through a couple of numbers here with you just to put this into perspective so all of us are on the same page. The 2016 Economic Report to the State of Utah by Governor Herbert says that farm gate sales in Utah from agriculture, $2.4 billion. Production and processing of agriculture is a $17.5 billion industry and makes up 14% of the state's gross domestic product. Our economic activity, 14% comes from agriculture. You all represent employment for 80,000 Utahns. And the interesting thing is Utah, as you all know, is a livestock state. You account for 78% of the total state product from an agriculture standpoint, comes from livestock, cattle, sheep ranching, and so forth. What you do is critical to our rural communities. But I want to make sure that as we begin this dialogue today, we point out that not every allotment, not every rancher, and not every range con forester, BLM, are in conflict. There's an awful lot of good, positive working relationships out there, and I want to point that out right up front and center. And I want to compliment those that are working well together because, you know what? That's the way it should be. With Utah controlled 67% of its land by the federal government, the history of ranching in Utah has been a development of operations, viable economic operations based on base property, privately held lands, privately held water rights, and access to federal land. That access has to be fair and transparent, however, to make these operations viable and sustainable. What we're seeing is a tremendous amount of uncertainty because there's a lot of lack of continuity, if that's the best way to say it, between one district and another and one ranch and another, and we want to see those become a lot more consistent in the way that they're managed. Uncertainty can be very emotional and very personal to you ranchers. I'm going to cite a rancher that I know very well personally. As we were talking to Senator Mike Lee, he pointed out he's a sixth-generation operator. And his greatest fear is that under his watch, and he's concerned about the uncertainty and the pressure that's on him, that he may lose his operation after 6 generations that may be lost under his watch. That's emotionally draining. That uncertainty is dramatically impacting who he is, and I think that's important for all of us to recognize. Those of you that are involved in agencies that are here with this, and I think a lot of ranchers understand that personally. Today we want to do some things, and I'm going to go through this very quickly. We want to balance the equation so that we know that the grazers know that it's not all about the anti-grazing groups, that they have friends on their side of the equation. We want to make sure they know that they have rights, resources, and friends. We don't want them to feel isolated. We want you folks to know that you have people you can call on. We want there to be continuity in the decision making. And the final thing is we want to make sure that our agencies don't exact some retribution because you guys are aggressively protecting your rights. Who you associate with should not impact your relationship with your range con. Bottom line, folks, we want to usher in a new era of understanding and cooperation and working with one another to make this thing work. I want to thank PLIPCO, Kathleen personally, for the friendship we've had for a long time and our working together. But I also want to thank contributors that are helping pay for lunch and different things today. The Cattlemen's Association, the Wool Growers Association, Zion's Ag Group, Western Ag Credit. They've helped make this event possible. The final thing I want to do before I turn this microphone over to Kathleen is to note that we do have security in the building. I don't expect there to be anything except the highest level of decorum and respect, but we do have security here in the building. So I'm going to introduce the first panel and then have Kathleen Clark come to the microphone to introduce our group in greater detail. We have Kathleen Clark, Director of Utah's Public Land Policy Coordinating Office, Tony Rampton, Assistant Attorney General and Public Lands Section Chief for PLIPCO, and Reg Johnson, County Liaison with PLIPCO. I'm looking forward to the presentations and discussions. Kathleen?